as long as there are sports, there will be cards. As long as there are people, there will be collectors. The hobby is resilient. It evolves. It endures. If you have the stones to stay the course, you will realize the benefits, savor the experiences, enjoy the journey.
I remember the first episode of one of the first episodes of Sports Cards Live that I watched. I remember you leading off by showing your guest of the hour a special card in your collection that someone had to tie in with them, right? So unfortunately, the card that I have to show you, I don't have an actual physical copy of, so I'm going to have to make do by sharing screen and just showing you a photo of it. So you're probably wondering, Doug Christie, Ben, what the heck? What could this possibly have to do with me? And you're right, Jeremy. What the heck could Doug Christie possibly have to do with you? So
I don't know, but I'm nervous.
So that's the front of the card. The key figure here is the back of the card.
Oh, Todd McCullough. I went to the same high school as him.
Shaftesbury High School, indeed.
That's right. That was my high school. Yeah, that's right. Why is he on the back of that card?
Honestly, I have no idea. I was looking up Todd McCullough cards, and then I found this one, and I was like, oh, this is too good. He's not going to see this one coming at all. Yeah, apparently it was like a misprint with the Fleer Ultras, or the Fleer set from that year, where some of the Doug Christie cards had Todd McCullough on the back. So,
yeah, I think so. I think he went into my high school the year after I graduated from it, or maybe he came in my graduating year, and he kind of took us from not even being on the map in high school basketball to, like, you know, the best team in probably in the province.
For real. So yeah, you grew up Winnipeg, Manitoba, right? So
yeah.
Okay, I actually lied. I do actually have a card to show you that actually has to tie in with this episode in homage to the legendary Sports Cards Live, and it's one of my best friend behind me right here. It's a PSA Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
I just got this back from PSA, and I was
let me see
so
that again.
upset.
Let me see that again.
Yeah, for sure.
1989 Brook Bonds Foods Magical. That's I love it.
Yeah, it's a T card. I was so, with the whole non-sports craze happening in the hobby right now, I was like, okay, there must be some kind of Winnie the Pooh rookie card. I'm insane to think that such a thing exists, and it does. This was the closest thing I could find. So I bought a bunch, and I was like, okay, which is the best one? Which is the one that'll most likely come back at PSA 10? Yeah, that one came back in 8, and I was very, very upset. But thankfully, I have 10 more that when PSA opens up, I'm going to get my 10. So it's all good. It's all good.
Hey, an eight's not so bad. Anyway, not many people know where Winnie the Pooh got his name from.
Exactly. Yeah, people don't realize, Winnipeg. And then I don't know if you ask me off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the full backstory. I don't know. Is that like a rite of passage type thing where, like, if you're from Winnipeg, everyone knows the origin story of Winnie the Pooh? Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I know it. And to be honest, I don't know why Winnie the Pooh is named for Winnipeg, but that's apparently the backstory. Maybe the author is from there originally or something like that.
It was named after a bear that originated in Winnipeg, and I think that's how Winnipeg got its name. Again, any history majors,
that's not how Winnipeg got its name.
Oh no, it's not.
No.
Okay. So see, this goes to show how unknowledgeable I am of the subject. But feel free to elaborate. I'm actually very curious.
I'm not exactly sure how, but I think that it's from some sort of it has a meaning in, like, Cree or some Aboriginal, one of the Aboriginal languages is the word Winnipeg comes from. So I think it means something to do with a lake or a river or something like that.
Fair enough. Well, hey, see, we're sports card historians, not actual historians, right? So that's what it's about. Okay. So Jeremy, I have two questions that I have to ask you. I have to ask, what do the following two sets mean to you? 1978-79 OPC and 1982-83 OPC hockey, of
Oh,
course.
you've been listening, my friend. You've been listening. Well, the 78-79 OPCs, that's my earliest memory of seeing a hockey card was, or any sports card, was the 78-79s. And the 82-83s, that's my first real memory of opening packs, waiting for that. Because, I was in Winnipeg at the time, and the Winnipeg Jets they were absorbed by the NHL from the WHA, along with three other teams, the Hartford Whalers, Edmonton Oilers, and the Quebec Nordiques. And when those two leagues merged, the WHA and the NHL, the teams coming in weren't allowed to keep all their players. We lost all of our great players like Bobby Hull and Anders Hedberg and Ulf Nielsen. And so the Jets were horrible, bottom of the league for the first several years until they drafted Dale Hawerchuk first overall in 1982. And although we never won anything, we were at least competitive and we had a superstar. And his rookie card was in the 82-83s, and I was about 10 years old at the time.
And that's pretty much what sent you down this lifetime rabbit hole, so to speak, right? It's good. It's nice. Everyone has kind of that one card or that one player that's not just their gateway to sports, but also the hobby as well. So that's nice. That's nice. All right. So I'm going to bring up two other names here that I want to see what you have any, basically tell me what these two names mean to you. Joe Daly and Abdi.
So, well, those would be two of my original LCSs.
Mm-hmm.
Abdi was really my first, outside of going to the corner drugstore for your packs of cards.
Yeah.
The first actual LCS I had was called Abdi. We called it ABD. We didn't really know how to. It was a weird name, but it was Ab period D period Abdi sports cards. And that was on Portage Avenue in Winnipeg, in the back of a store called Book Fair, which was like a comic store.
Nice.
And those are the two guys that owned it were brothers. Their names were Barry and Dale. And we used to, Dale was very talkative and Barry was very stern and serious. So we used to call him Sir. And me and my buddy Danny, we say, yeah, we're going to go see Sir and Dale. That's what we were doing. And then Joe Daly, who's a former NHL goaltender, opened up his store in Winnipeg. I don't know when, in the mid to later 80s, maybe, and maybe 86, 87 in there. He's been a guest on my show, and I'm sure he gave that answer. But he was a big LCS for me. I spent many a Saturday afternoons in the store with him and his son Travis.
So growing up, you were really involved in the whole LCS scene in terms of after school, going to the store, ripping packs. And ultimately, I guess that's how, you started building sets from 82 to 89. What made you want to build sets?
Yeah, well, let me just say that me and my buddy Danny, this is my childhood friend. We're actually still like best friends. He lives here. We both live. Anyway, we used to take the bus we were neighbors. We used to take the bus downtown to go to Abdi Cards and Book Fair. And we'd also go to the arcades and play arcade machines and that. But we did that every Saturday.
Nice.
And we were so young. We were playing grade 3, 4. I remember there was one time we got on the bus to come home, took the wrong bus, got lost, didn't know where the heck we are. Somehow the bus driver made sure we got home. But what got me started on completing sets was really opening up packs every weekend with my allowance, and these cards were numbered on the back, and there was a goal. There was a goal. Yeah. Get all 396 cards, which was the size of the set many of those years. And that was really it. Just get all the different cards, have all the players represented.
It's crazy how in terms of set building and collecting and everything like that, it all comes down to completing a puzzle, so to speak, right? So the reason Pokemon is so popular is because it's, got to catch them all. You want to catch all the different Pokemon, and it applies to, it's funny because they do that with cards now, with Pokemon cards now, right? And now with sports cards, I guess that dates it back even further. So I don't know, maybe it's this human innate nature for us to want to just complete things, right? So yeah, Unfortunately for me, the nearest LCS I had was about on the other side of town for me. And I was not allowed to take the city bus because, I had Asian parents. So if I would try to get out of the house or did anything like that, that was a hard no. So basically anytime we were, in that neighborhood, I'd always bug my mom. I'd be like, can we stop by the card shop? And she's like, oh, okay, fine. Then she'd drop me off there, and then she'd go run errands and then do her thing. It was actually by our church. So every time after church, I'd always ask her, okay, we went to church. Can we go to the card shop now? She's just like, oh, geez, it's crazy how humble these beginnings can be, right? So
totally. We all get into it in different sort of ways,
Yeah.
and all of our early stories are so different. So yeah, but that's what keeps the hobby interesting, and why these podcasts and meeting new collectors and insiders and all that through this new medium is it's awesome. We get to hear how everybody gets involved.
Yeah, everyone has, and I guess it comes. I can't believe I get to shamelessly plug the motto of this podcast. Everyone has a story to tell. Every story worth telling. This is the first time I actually said that out loud. It sounds super cheesy, but I love it, so it's all good. It's all good.
So cheesy.
So, so okay. So obviously, you're a hockey guy, right? But we'll get into that a little bit later in more detail. But what can you tell me about 1990 Skybox basketball?
I love a guy that does his research.
I mean, I do
because usually I would tell you that 1990 Skybox basketball was revolutionary in its day with just the designs. I mean, there were no backgrounds. Well, the backgrounds were these weird artistic splashes of color, sort of thing. Not splashes, but just these weird patterns of color. But for me, I was in Australia, so I graduated high school in June of 1990, and in the end of August or early September that year, at 18 years old, me and a buddy went to Australia by ourselves.
Nice.
On this. It was called the SWAP program, the Students Working Abroad program. So
yes.
we went for just under a year, and I was homesick for a lot of the time I was there. So I would look for things that reminded me of home. One thing would have been sports cards. So I hunted for and I mean, here I am in Australia, not sure if there'd be anywhere to find sports cards. And one day I walked into this, I think it was a bookstore or a game store, something like that. And they had packs of Skybox sitting on the counter. And I think I just bought it all because it was I wanted the experience of opening up a box of cards while I was on the other side of the planet, to make me feel a little bit like I was back at home. So that's my memory of 90s Skybox.
Now, did you pull anything from that card that you from that pack or from that box that you still have today?
Not a thing, man. I don't even remember if I brought them home from Australia with me, but
okay, that's fair.
I'm sure I pulled the Michael Jordan or two.
Was that your gateway into basketball, or were you collecting basketball beforehand then?
Oh, I collected basketball beforehand. I mean, you said I'm a hockey guy. I'm a Canadian. I've been a hockey fan my whole life, but I was a hardcore basketball fan in the mid to late 80s. I was a Pistons fan because in Winnipeg, that was the news feed we would get was Detroit news. So I'd watch highlights. So I became the Bad Boys. That was my era.
Nice.
I wasn't a Jordan fan. I mean, although the Bulls weren't that competitive against the Pistons back then, it was mostly the Trailblazers
Always
that were
had their number. Yep.
Yeah, and the Lakers and that. But I remember the day that it was announced that Magic Johnson had contracted or was diagnosed with HIV. And on that same day, I knew that Abdi Cards had a Magic Johnson, Larry Bird rookie in this store. So I called up my stepdad, who was I said, hey, on your way home from work, you have to go buy this rookie card because Magic's sick. And, back then there was no eBay, there was no internet. There was one I knew of in the city. So it was let's get it before somebody else does because I want the card now. So anyway, he went and got it. Ended up grading a PSA 8 many, many years later.
Nice.
But no, I mean, I've always collected all four sports. Even in the mid 80s, I was buying Fleer baseball cards and tops and all that.
Yeah, no, the reason why I ask is because I'm always, as a basketball junkie myself, I'm always so curious for what the basketball landscape was like in Canada, pre 1995, because it's all over the place. A lot of people were like, oh, it's either Jordan, Magic, Bird. It's very one of those big three, because obviously they're the ones that really ushered in the new era of basketball, really popularized it, right? It's crazy you bring up the Magic Johnson thing, because it goes to show how even way back then, that emotional attachment when relating to current events, right? Because so many people now, when it comes to whole buying sports cards, or like, speculation and everything like that, people like to buy because, oh, someone's documentary's coming out, or oh, Kobe Bryant died, so let's buy up all his autos because he's not signing anymore. So it's crazy how even then that emotional attachment and reaction was still like prevalent then.
It was, man. It was like, what went through my head was that, yeah, we better get that card before it goes up in value. Not from an investment perspective as much as, well, it'll just go out of reach and then we won't be able to get one. So we better get it before that happens. But, in the 80s, like pre-95, my recollection of basketball from a Canadian fan perspective was, through the 80s, it was all about the Lakers and the Celtics. That's all that really mattered in basketball back then. And then eventually MJ came in, and of course things shifted. But Magic and Bird, it's really serendipitous that they ended up on the same rookie card. It's magical in a way. We're very I think a lot of people would rather they had their own cards. But if you could take any two players in the history of sport to be on the same rookie card, like, does it get any better than those two?
It's the perfect like ebony and ivory, that yin and that yang. I don't think you could name a better duo in sports history. That just, they flow so well together, and that's what makes that card so iconic. And then you add in another legend in Julius Erving, right dab in the middle, which is, it's almost like one of those like passing of the torch type things, right? Because Julius Erving was dominating the 70s, 80s ish, and then now he's ushering in the new era of these guys. But do you have their solo the 81 tops with just them?
Dude, I had them. I had PSA 9s of both the Magic and the Bird, and at the Virtual Expo last June.
Oh wow.
So I was into them cheap. I bought the Magic. I bought a Magic second year PSA 9 at the 2019 National for, it was $50 or $60 I paid.
Wow.
Super cheap.
Jeez.
Yeah. A year later in June, I sold it for $500 or $550 at the Virtual Expo. And now a year after that, in between, it's gone up another 10x. So, and the funny thing is that I said at my virtual booth, as I'm doing the deal with this guy, and I'm making the deal on these two cards, I said to anyone who was watching, was in the booth, and I said, I'm going to regret this. I'm going to regret selling these two cards. But I sold them because I have their rookie cards. So I thought, you know what? But I always knew and felt that, the first solo card is important. And that's why I had them in the first place. But so I no longer do. And I do. I admit, I regret selling those two cards. I'd love to have them back, but I hope they're in good hands.
Hey, if I could take a drink for everyone who sold something too early and then it just kept going up, hey, I feel like that's like a rite of passage in the hobby. You're not really into it until that happens to you, right? So,
and yeah, exactly. And I don't feel that bad about it. Like I get over it really quickly every time I think about it, because I bought a ton of cards before COVID and all that. So I've made out pretty well with many cards. So it's kind of, in a way, it actually feels good to have passed on some value to other collectors to give them that good feeling as well.
Of course. Because then that collector takes on that card and they're kind of like, wow, I got this when it was still whatever value. And then to that, it almost like it makes it more, for some, it's tempting to like sell it and like cash out. But for those who become really attached to it, they're like, wow, it becomes priceless to them, right? Which at the end of the day, it's a hobby first, right? You want to collect and you want to enjoy. We buy these pieces of cardboard because they bring us, joy, satisfaction, right? Ultimately, not to, flip for profit, right? So
no, exactly. And it also, helps build community, and it gives whoever buys those cards, or, in this specific example, bought those cards from me. they have a win under their belt now, and that's going to let them know that they can have future wins. So they're not going to be disenchanted by the market with the with the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows that are going to happen in any economy. So, overall, it's a good thing to. It's like I want to say you win some, you lose some, but I don't really feel like I lost.
You
there.
never lose.
I feel like it's almost a win-win.
Yeah,
so, and I profited, so you can't complain about taking some money off.
Yeah,
take some money off the table.
You take your profits and then you just put them into the next thing, right? So yeah, those pre-basketball days, those pre-Raptors basketball days, pre-Canada basketball days, pre-1995. Specifically, I guess you could say that's around 1991 to 1994. Is that any era of significance to you at all?
So I got back from Australia in April of 91. And I got a part-time job working at a sports card store, and quickly realized that, the hobby was blowing up at the time. And so ended up opening up a store myself with my folks. And we had that shop from right in that junk wax boom era from 91 till 94. And, I was running it but I was also going to university at the time. So when I would be in class, my mother would be at the store. I'd come there when I, had spares or after school and sort of take over. And then it just kind of got to the point where I had to focus more on my university and building what eventually became my career. So we ended up just closing the store, and we had a lease. So my mother ended up turning into like a secondhand clothing store for women, sort of a higher end secondhand clothing store.
Nice. That's nice. It's cool how you actually brought up the junk wax era, because one of the questions that I wanted to lead into that was, I'm just so curious what it would be like owning an LCS during the junk wax era, specifically in Canada in that pre-1995 days, where basically everything was overprinted. But since we're in Canada, was hockey the most like popular thing, or was it baseball? Or
it was hockey by far. And remember, I was in Winnipeg, where for such a small city in the scope of North America, we had a professional team, being the Winnipeg Jets at that time. And so hockey was very popular there. Extremely popular, not just the hobby, but the kids playing, street hockey, all that sort of thing. And so having the stop at the time, it was all about Upper Deck coming out, and back then it wasn't called Upper Deck Series 1 and Series 2. It was just Upper Deck. Came out once a year. Then they did put out, there wasn't really a Series 1, Series 2, but they would then put out the high numbers, or the high numbers series. So the high numbers series actually, so the first edition that came out would be cards, say 1 to 400. And then the high series would come out a few months later, and that would be 1 to say 600. So they would still include more of the same first 400 cards, but then there would be the additional cards that were tacked on to the end. So it was busy, man. Our store was busy regularly, and it was people coming in to buy singles. It was similar to now, where people were they were speculating on what rookies, who to buy, who was going to go up in value down the road. Some people would come in and fill out sheets, like a sheet of a 9-pocket page of the same player, try to fill out one page for each player. They were stockpiling back in the day. It was easier to do back then because they were so much cheaper.
Now, would you say we're in a junk wax era right now? That's always the hot take between.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it the same way. There's so many different elements now and factors in the game. Back then, it wasn't necessarily just one set per year from one company. Like most of the 80s was, if you go back into the 70s in baseball, you had tops every year. That was it, right? Some regional stuff, don't really count those. In the 80s, I think in 82 or 83 it was, you had all these new baseball, you had Donruss, you had Fleer coming in to compete with tops. In hockey, you didn't have anything until 1990 when Upper Deck came out. So 1990 to me is really when the modern era started. And all of a sudden you've got all these different companies putting out a set, but they only really put out one set per year. And there were a very low number of like parallels and inserts. There wasn't much of that. There were some, but there wasn't much. Nowadays, you've got the base set, which is basically kindling, and then you've got right, and then
You're
you've
right.
got, but you can't burn it because of all the plastic coating, so it's not really kindling.
That's
So
true.
it's really just like pure. Anyway, so
I got you.
now you've got, as you well know, and everyone listening and watching knows, now you've got all these parallels and all these inserts, and you got parallels of inserts and inserts of parallels and all this different kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just totally different now. I don't think it's a junk wax era, because I still think that there's less product now than there was then.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a gut feel.
Yeah.
And based on people I've had on my show who were around at that time, who will just tell you that they ran the presses nonstop back then. It was just constantly running the presses. So nowadays the presses are constantly running, but different companies are all kind of competing for the same printing company's capacity. So
right.
A bunch of other reasons why I don't feel that this is a junk wax era.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, as collectors and investors in the space, you need to be careful what you're buying, because there is going to be the best of the best, and there's going to be the dreck. There just will be.
I guess that leads in perfectly to my follow-up. Do you think we're in a junk slab era?
I mean, that's such a weird term. Like, it really depends. If you're somebody who submits 100 cards a month or 500 cards a month, and you're submitting base cards that you are submitting to flip to the market, then that is, I think that group of slabs is going to be considered junk slab. Sure. Down the road, I do. I'm going to say yes. I do think we're in some, but it doesn't define the whole space. It doesn't define the whole hobby right now. It's a very niche part of it that gets a lot of airtime.
Yeah.
But there are people who submit low-end cards because they want them for their personal collection. Those cards aren't going to end up on eBay. Yeah, no, that's a special card. Come on, that's a special card right there. I love it.
Let's be honest. It's low end. Like I got this, I got a bunch of them for like $5, right? So,
but the difference is the pop on that isn't going to be 20,000. The pop on that's going to be 20, maybe 50. So it's not junk slab at all. To me, you need super high pop, super low demand to be junk slab. So I think you got the people who are submitting low end cards because they want to keep them for their personal collection. Those cards will never be listed, never be offered to the public for sale. So no one really knows they're out there except that they're in the pop reports. Is that junk slab? Not yet. Maybe when that person ends up passing away or decides to sell their set, and it hits the market. But there certainly is a component of the hobby right now that is junk slab.
For sure. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with a lot of the flippers entering the market. Firsthand experience, a lot of the people I've experienced who have come in the last year or so, they're coming in from the sneaker reselling game, because we're just like they want to buy products so they can flip it. But the problem is that if you're entering the hobby, I feel like in order to really enjoy it and get the most out of it, you have to treat it with the special respect, right? You can't just buy cards and then like treat them just like, okay, buy this and then I'm gonna flip it in X amount of time, and then like that, right? Every card, as I know you've talked about in previous episodes of Sports Cards Live, every card has a story behind it. Every person who owns that card, there's a reason why they bought it and everything like that. There's so much more depth that comes into it there's so much more depth that goes into it, which that's what will really separate. And that's why I personally believe that the collectors will always will come out on top at the end every single time.
Yeah, especially if collectors kind of have, they know what they collect.
Yeah.
And, you can collect many different things. Like, we use the term PC very loosely, right? Like PC. It's like, I love when people always say, who do you PC? It's like, all right, have a seat. Let's get it. Who do I PC? Like, I PC many, many players, right? From different sports, certain sets, certain there's different themes. There's all sorts of things. Like, if you say to someone, who do you PC? And you think that's good, then whoever they say is going to explain their whole approach to the hobby. It's almost like a limiting question. You're not going to get the right answer. The better question is, how do you approach the hobby? Or even just as simple as, what do you collect? Because it's not, who do you PC? Oh God. I mean, like, again, take out your pen and paper. I'll tell you, because it's like 100 different players I PC. So yeah.
That actually reminds me of, I forget which episode it was, or if it was your podcast. Probably was, because my intake of hobby content in terms of long form is very limited, because I only save it for the best of the best. I can't be poisoning my mind with too much like different stuff. I'm someone with a very eclectic taste. I only like the high end. I only like the high end content. You know what I mean? So it was in.
Have you ever seen my show?
Who hasn't? What was that like your way of like, this is how I give you more graces? Because
no,
I'm going to continue
trying to be humble, really.
Of course. Of course, that's appreciated. But I think it was in a previous episode, you said something along the lines of, it's like, okay, there's your. I might not get the verbiage right completely here, but it's like, there's your permanent PC, and then, like you said, your flexible PC or something along those lines, where it's like, these are the cards that will go to your grave, and then these are the cards that you're holding on to now, you like, but you're not completely attached to. Can you enlighten me on that? Because I feel like I just butchered that entire analogy or whatever, but
you did pretty well, actually.
Okay.
You did pretty well. So first of all, I can't take credit for this. This was something that I saw on an episode of Cardboard Chronicles. I forget the name of Josh's guest for that episode, but whoever he was, I was really impressed by this gentleman. He was excellent. And anyway, he made the distinction, which just really resonated with me, that we all have our PCs, but within that PC, there's a segment or a cutout portion of it that is your permanent collection. So it's your other PC, right?
Yeah.
So that's true, right? We have our PCs, but there are going to be like, my PC is probably now up to close to 4,000 cards. Wow. I got more, but I mean 4,000 cards that are like logged in Excel, let's say, right? So not all my cards and binders do I take the time to log or to so anyway, or to document. But you've got your PC, and then you've got your permanent collection, which it's going to be a different amount for everybody. For me, it's, I don't know how many cards it is. I really don't. But let's say it's a couple hundred. Yeah, those to me are permanent collection cards. So the non-permanent collection cards within the PC, to me, I call it's somewhat fluid. Like, cards can leave it and go into my inventory or my traders or the cards that I have for card shows. And then sometimes the most fun part is when I go shopping in my own inventory, which I just did. I just did this a few nights ago, sort of getting prepared for the virtual expo.
Nice.
I just added these 3 cards to my, PC from my inventory.
I love it.
These are brand new cards that are, well, they're not brand new, but they're coming back into the PC. So it's, again, it's a fluid, your PC can be fluid. And I don't think that you need to feel bad about it. If you have cards that you buy for your PC and you eventually decide that they're not cards that you need to keep, feel free to move them out, and don't feel bad or guilty that you're not a true collector because you didn't keep them in your PC.
Exactly. I feel like a lot of people are too hard on themselves when they're like, oh, this is a PC card. And then they end up selling it, like, say, a month or so later, because it's just like, well, okay, I wasn't really. It was one of those, like, I don't want to necessarily say impulse buy, but you talk about it a lot, how a lot of the thrill of the hobby is in the hunt, right? That chase for, like, you're spending 24/7 on eBay. You see that card that you added to your watch list, and, like, you're just waiting for the auction to end, getting your snipe ready getting your bid snipe ready. And then you get it and it's like, okay, sweet. And then now you're just waiting for it to come in. And then once you have it finally in hand, it's like that euphoric high and then you just reset again, right? So
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole process, right? From first looking for it to seeing it to bidding to winning to paying to anticipating it arriving in your mailbox to opening it up to scanning it to
yeah.
sharing it with friends and
Yeah.
then eventually putting it in its resting place with your other cards.
I love how you
Permanent
refer to it as your resting place because it pretty much is because you keep them locked away somewhere, and then it's
home.
like the odd occasion, yeah, you'll bring it back out and everything. All that we just talked about in the last like couple minutes or so, I felt like a lot of like permanent collection versus personal collection, the fluidity. I was like, oh, it's all coming back to me now. Wow, okay, I really butchered that when I was trying to explain it, but no, it's nice. I had a little sports cards live kind of crash course, so to speak. It was a very nice, I had a nice moment there. Let's take it back before we get back into present talk. Let's take it back a couple more years. Let's say around, so I have another name that I want to bring up to you, but we're going to take it back to about 2000, 2001. John Beliveau and Toronto.
John Beliveau in Toronto. Boy, oh boy, you're putting me to the test here, Ben. I'm actually not sure what you're getting at.
John Beliveau raw rookie card.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So yeah, that's boy, man. You know more about me than I know about me. So
That's what I do.
yeah. I mean, one of the first projects I took in the hobby outside after set completion. Like I was always about completing the set of O-Pee-Chee hockey every year. In the late 80s, I started collecting the rookie card of all the 1,000-point men in NHL history, and John Beliveau was one of them. And again, this is pre-PSA and Beckett grading. So Jean Beliveau is one of the most important players in the 1,000-point man club. And at one of my, I don't know if it was my first expo in Toronto or second, or maybe, I don't remember at this point, but this was back, in 2000, 2001, in those early 2000 years. And that was one of the bigger cards I'd bought, and up to that point at a card show. And probably the first big card I bought at an expo. And that was it was a beautiful card. I still own it to this day. I since had it graded. I had it graded in 2008. It graded out a PSA 5. And I love it to this day. I love the card. I subsequently had acquired a PSA 7 Jean Beliveau rookie, and I thought, okay, I'll sell the 5. But after holding both for a while and putting them side by side, I liked the 5 better. It was just the card I wanted to keep, and I ended up selling off the 7, and I kept the 5, and I have zero regrets about that decision, because the 5, there's, like you said earlier, there's stories about these cards. We have connections to them. It's not just about owning the asset. Sometimes there's emotional value attached, and I had emotional value attached to the 5 because of buying it early on in my collecting career, or earlier on, I guess. And it showed its age. The 7 had perfectly white edges. It was almost too nice. I wanted a card from 1953 to show a few signs of being from 1953.
That's first off, to all the young bucks listening, grade doesn't matter. That story right there is a perfect example of that. Well, grade doesn't always matter, because like a lot of people, I don't want to get it twisted, because and anywho,
We know what you mean.
yeah. I love that you brought that up, because one of my, long-term collecting goals, I haven't started it yet, but I'd love to get a PSA 1 of all of like the GOATs of all the sports, because I know for a fact that it's like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I never see myself buying a PSA 9 or 10 86 Fleer Jordan. Definitely not a PSA 9 or 10 Gretzky. Definitely not the 10, of course. But there's something, like you said, about having the beat up card that shows it's from that time period, because essentially you're holding these pieces of cardboard that it's like a mini time capsule in a sense, right? Because it shows it's like, oh, this came from all the way back then. And I think that's why if you go back to even further to like the T206 Honus Wagner's, even though what's the highest grade copy? Is it the 5, like the Gretzky copy? Is that the highest grade?
Well, the Gretzky copy is an 8.
It's an 8. It's an 8. My bad. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the one that's known to be trimmed, and Bill Mastro admitted to trimming it. So, but the most valuable one, I believe, is the PSA 5 miscut. It's oversized. It's known, I think it's known as the jumbo. That's but we just saw like a PSA 2.5 or a 3 just sold for big money, and the thing was like wrinkles and creases all the way all through it. So doesn't really matter. Like you just said, you'd like to have a PSA 1 of all the goats, but you can find really nice PSA 1s, or you can just find a PSA 4 that's very nice too. That's still going to be a good value.
I'm just obsessed with like uniformity, and everything I collect, I like having is like, okay, if I'm collecting all the goats, I want them all 1s. If I'm collecting all Raptors, I want them all like 6. No, okay, not 6s, like 9s or something like that. I have this weird obsession with PSA 9s. So for me, it's nice because if I send something off the grading and it comes back a 10, that's just like icing on the cake. I'm like, oh, cool. Kind of wanted a 9, but that's all right. I got a 10. It's cool, right?
Bonus.
It's weird stuff like that. But okay, so on my last couple of lives, I've had this recurring ask from this guy Dex Flow. I don't know if that's his real name or not, but he always asks me to do like a Jamaican accent or some kind of weird accent of some sort. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Let's roll with it. I'm a man of the people. I'll entertain y'all. One thing I haven't been asked to do yet is a celebrity impression. And I have one for you right now. And I want to see what this, basically what connection you have to this particular celebrity. All right. This is my first time ever doing this. So, try not to beat me up too bad, because I'm not an impressions guy at all. But here we go. I'm the best ever. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Dak Dempsey. There's never been anyone like me. I'm from their cloth. There's no one who can match me. My style's impetuous. My defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
I know who it is.
Who was I? Who was I doing there?
You're doing this guy right here. That card above my finger. That's Mike Tyson, my man.
I'm glad. Okay, I was hoping you wouldn't pick some other famous person with the list, but I was like, okay, whew, all right, we good there. But yeah,
I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from their cloth. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
So
well done. That was pretty good.
So yeah, I
well, you had the cadence down too, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, I tried my best there. It went better when it went better in rehearsal, but that's the beauty of this podcast. Not everything is everything's live and off the cuff. So yeah, the Upper Deck employee exclusive PMG Purple Mike Tyson. I know that you didn't get that from your very brief stint at Upper Deck, taking photos and whatnot. If you, because I know you got that in a deal, but do you want to elaborate on, both of those two experiences?
Sure.
First off of what made you buy a purple PMG Mike Tyson, but also, the to tie in with the Upper Deck connection.
Sure, I'll go chronologically. So the Upper Deck, the Upper Deck experience was really cool. It was probably my hobby highlight, even to this day. Well, doing the show is pretty much a highlight because of all the cool guests I have. But so everyone's pretty much now aware of the whole fake patch pandemic, swapping out the fake patches. We just saw a 2003 exquisite LeBron James in a golden auction. Taken out of the auction by Ken Golden because of suspicion that the auction was fake, or that the patch was fake, meaning somewhere along the line, at some point, one of the card's owners took out the one color patch and inserted in its place a nice 3-color patch. So this has been a problem in the hobby since the early 2000s. And for many years in the early 2000s, I was really quite vocal about this being a problem and that needs to be fixed. And I started building an archive of RPAs from the Cup, and I did it for the first 3 years of the Cup, and then I just stopped. It got to be too much. But at one point in about 2009, the 2008-9 Cup was about to come out, and we were, we being the hobby, me and some friends of mine who were heavily collecting Cup RPAs in those years, were scared that people were going to fake them. So I put out a challenge to Upper Deck on the message board Hobby Insider, where Upper Deck staffers were reading, and they still do to this day. And I said basically, hey, if you won't take pictures of these cards, I will come to your facility on my own time and my own dime. I said it just like that. And I will take those pictures myself. So, and, by that time I knew Carvin pretty well. I knew Chris Carlin a little bit. And so they ended up getting in touch with me and saying, hey, are you serious about that? I said, yeah, I'm happy to do it. Okay, come on down. We're going to be in, I forget which Carolina it was in, but it'll be in South Carolina in, I think it was going to be July or June of 2009. And I flew out. I flew out there. Before flying out there, I bought a camera that had, good capability so I could take these big gang scans. I went and took lessons on how to use it, paid like $4,000 for this camera at the time, paid my way, went down there and spent 4 days with the Upper Deck team helping, basically I helped them pack out the product, but I also captured images of over 28,000 patch cards that went into that set. So if you have a patch card from 2008, 2009 Upper Decks the Cup, I've touched that card, which is kind of neat. And then I was done my photographing before they were done packing out, because that was just, obviously the way the chain worked.
Yep.
So at the end, I hand packed some packs myself, which is really fun because I made sure to pack them pretty well for the collector that would end up getting them. So that was that story. It was a huge privilege to be able to be at the pack out, witness it, see how it worked, and build that archive of images, which has never been released to the public. Because they were mixed, and it would have the hours and hours it took me to crop all those gang scans. I just never put in the time. So in any event, I still have those images. But onto the Mike Tyson card. Yeah, it's this one right here. It's a PMG. It's a BGS 9.5, and I love precious metal gems. I think they're very, very important cards. A lot of it is related to the really the equity that the Michael Jordan has.
Yep.
The 97. And Mike Tyson, I believe is a GOAT. I believe he's worthy of any collection that likes to focus on the greatest of all times and just to have a wide, like a broad collection as I do. So he was worthwhile, and that was the card that I wanted to represent him in my collection.
Nice.
Limited 100, yeah, and it's a great piece.
Have you ever met Mike Tyson?
I've met Mike Tyson. Yes, yeah, I have. So my brother is in the autograph business, and he had a private signing session with Mike Tyson once, and I was present for it. So I kind of helped out, just putting the boxing gloves and the 8x10s in front of Mike, and then taking them away, putting them in front, taking them away, and had a couple of pictures taken with him and that sort of thing.
Is he truly the gentle giant that he's a very polarizing figure, right? Because in his later years he's become this very peaceful, gentle giant, but prime Mike Tyson was a scary fella.
Well, he was very nice and soft spoken, like he always is.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one point during the signing session where my brother's sort of business partner was taking pictures of Mike signing, and that's important for provenance, right? And for evidence and all that. I mean, the PSA guys were there doing their witness service, so they were right there putting their witness sticker every time Mike signed something. But Jeff still wanted to take some pictures of the event, and at one point, Mike I don't know if something clicked in his head, but he looked up, he goes, I don't remember. I do not remember what he said, but it was basically something like, I'm going to rip that camera out of your hands and and throw it on the floor. And Jeff is like, whoa. So we all just kind of back to business. Let's just get this thing finished. But at the end of it all, we took some pictures and some laughs, high fives. It was a good experience overall.
I'm imagining him saying that in his very gentle voice, it's funny because if you've heard Mike Tyson speak, it's so soothing, but at the same time, if it's in the wrong if it's in the wrong tone, like wrong context, it could be the scariest thing you could ever heard, right?
It's Mike Tyson.
It's Mike Tyson, exactly.
I mean, the last guy you want to mess with.
Yeah, so no, it's great that you have that purple PMG. I love how with all of the more newer, later PMG releases, they've added those extra colors to kind of branch off of the original green and red. Let's talk about some 2012 Fleer PMG hockey, because that is an iconic set for many reasons. But I want to let the guest hockey expert, I want to elaborate onto collecting that.
Sure. I mean, so at the time when it's 2012-13 Upper Deck Fleer Retro, that's the set. They did it for basketball and football as well, but they weren't licensed. Hockey was, which was great for us hockey collectors. And at the time, it wasn't popular at all. It was something that was it was a second thought for most collectors. And even for myself, I was opening packs looking for the tribute cards to the original Fleer Ultra sets from the 90s in hockey. And I see this Hot Shots, I'd be like, that's just a weird card. Like, why do you need flames on a hockey card? And there'd be Noise Boys, like, what is this? Because I didn't know that these were tributes to these iconic 90s basketball cards. I was unaware of that. Jambalaya, to me, was like, what the heck is Jambalaya? Like, really? That's a card? So it took me, I really had to, my tastes had to be refined for these things to become important to me. And it eventually got there, which is kind of fun because it exposed me to all these new cards. And to this day now, at this stage of my collecting of my hobby career, what I'm looking for are these unique cards. That's what turns my crank now more than anything in the hobby. So boy, do I wish I was tuned into these back in 2012, even in 1997, 98, when the originals came out in basketball. But so the nice thing is that, a lot of these cards are based on the 97 Fleer metal basketball sets. A lot of the inserts are. And again, they're licensed. So for a guy like me, who I got into the 90s basketball inserts in around 2017 or 18. And that's where I started. And then it's kind of like, I'm a hockey guy first and foremost, but I got into hockey inserts, kind of took a detour through basketball and came back to hockey. Right.
Yeah.
And now I've been buying up these Fleer inserts from both Fleer Showcase 2012, as well as some Fleer Showcase sets that came out later on in 2013, 14, 15, 16, and that. So they're it's funny because so many people look back to the second half of the 90s and say that's where so many of the great cards were made. And I agree. So many great cards were made in that second half of the 90s. That is a small 5-year window of absolute greatness, of course, and iconicness for the hobby. But down the road, 10, 15 years from now, I think we'll be looking back and we'll be saying that 2012 to 2016 Fleer run that Upper Deck did in hockey, there's some amazing cards in there. And I've been onto them for a while, and I've been buying as much as I can. So I love that stuff, Ben. I love it.
It's like what you said. The what makes it so significant is because the NHL actually had a license on that. So you actually got the hockey players in their actual team uniforms with the logos and everything. Compared to basketball, it was just their college uniforms, which, yeah, they're still cool. It's cool to say it's like, oh, I have a LeBron James PMG, but it doesn't hit the same when it's in those college uniforms, right? So
no, I mean, not for me, and not for most basketball. But if you're a huge college basketball fan, even more so than NBA, then I get it, and all the power to you. You're lucky you have those. You're lucky they made them. But I think the majority of collectors prefer professional uniforms, myself included.
Absolutely. All right. So I hate to ask people, what your favorite card is in your collection, because that's just the worst question to ever ask a collector, because that's like picking between children, right? It's like, man, I don't know. So okay, I'm gonna twist it up a bit. All right. You have to pick a Mount Rushmore of your favorite PMGs in your collection. So you're not picking a favorite card, but you have to build a Mount Rushmore. So not necessarily your favorite, they can be, but the ones you own that you find are the most significant. Or it could be a mixture of both. Well, however you feel. What's your Mount Rushmore?
If we're just going with PMGs, I got to put my old. I have one basketball from '97. I have a Shaquille O'Neal PMG Red, which I bought at the National in 2019. It's a PSA 6, which is a great grade for that year and that set.
Very good.
And when it comes to that, it's like grade doesn't even matter.
Grade doesn't matter. Yeah,
doesn't even matter. So that one for sure. And then 2012 hockey. I have a PMG green Wayne Gretzky. I have a PMG green Sidney Crosby. Those would be up there. I also have from, I forget what year, I have another green Crosby from another year. And then I have this is just here from my show this past weekend. Here's a 2016 PMG green Alex Ovechkin.
Oh, that's nice.
That's nice. Beautiful.
You arguably have take Shaq out and you have those three right there. You have the three of the hockey goats. That's a potential hockey Mount Rushmore right there in itself. So
it is. Oh, and then I could also add to that, because I have the rookie year McDavid and Austin Matthews in the employee. So they're the purples. They're not the purple out of 5 or the pink out of 5. Mm-hmm. They're out of 125 and 150, but they're still awesome cards.
Yeah.
Actually, if you look right there, you see that box there?
Yeah.
That's the Upper Deck logo that's embedded into that wooden box. That's the box that the employee PMGs came out of.
Oh, that's sick.
And I bought a set of 15 and 16 off of one listing off eBay about a year ago, and they came in that box there. So it's funny because that box says 2017 on it, but I bought the 15 and 16 set from this particular seller on eBay.
Oh, it just so happened to be in that box.
Yeah. So to me, the box is super cool. I would have paid $100 for the box.
Exactly. Right.
I think it's a neat piece of hobby history.
Exactly. Absolutely. Not since we're in the depths of hockey right now, I'm here with the resident hockey expert, Mr. Jeremy Lee. I have to ask, sir, why is Teemu Selanne your favorite player?
Oh man, Teemu is my favorite player because again, he played in Winnipeg for the first 2.5 years of his career until he got traded very disappointingly to the Anaheim Mighty Ducks and in one of the worst days in Winnipeg's history. I mean, Winnipeg had a flood. Winnipeg's had some bad things happen, from a societal perspective. But when Teemu Selanne got traded from the Winnipeg Jets, it was literally like losing a family member. It was so sad. But anyway, when Teemu came to Winnipeg, he was drafted in, I believe, 1988 or something like that. He was drafted, but he didn't come and play until 92, 93. Okay. So he actually spent time. He had to serve his military time in Finland before he could come play. So his rookie year was 90, I think it was 2-3. And he was 22 years old, which is pretty mature for a rookie at the time. Anyway, he came and he was the best player we'd ever seen. And we had Bobby Hull, we had Dale Hawerchuk, and those two guys were arguably better than Teemu. But Teemu, he lifted you out of your seat more than anybody ever had. He was so exciting, so humble, so nice. He was a kindergarten teacher. He would play street hockey. Like, my card shop was basically a 6-minute walk from his house. So I knew where he lived. You could drive down that street on a weekend afternoon. He'd be out front playing street hockey with the kids in the neighborhood. He was just such a nice guy. And his rookie season, he broke the all-time rookie record for goals in one season. He ended up with 76 goals. The record goal is 54. The prior rookie record was 53 goals. Mike Bossy, he went on to break it with his 54th goal, and then he went on to score 76 altogether. So he shattered the record. And I had season tickets. My dad had season tickets that year for me and him, and so I went to basically every home game that year. And Teemu was just nobody made you proud to be a Winnipegger as much as he did in those years. He gave us hope for the first time because, the Jets never won with Dale Howardchuk. And he was just the most exciting player we ever had for our beloved Winnipeg Jets.
That everything you said about Teemu reminded me so much of the man I'm pointing to up here. I don't know if can you see? I don't know if you can.
Carter?
Yeah. So it just down to the really injected life into Winnipeg, just as he injected life into, and then like when he left, it was like, yeah, a part of you died, right? So
it was. I was on vacation. I was in Vancouver. It was the summertime. I was visiting my best friend in Vancouver, and I got the newspaper, and I was like, "What?" I like cried. It was terrible. Like we had our season tickets were front row that year, so right against the glass. So when Teemu broke that record, I jumped up on the glass. I jumped up on the boards, and I was leaning over the top of the glass, doing this, cheering, pumping my fist. And that was when, just across the ice, he did that move where he threw his glove up in the air and took his stick and shot at the glove. I mean, I had the best view of that of anybody at the time because I didn't even have the glass in front of me. I was watching it like straight on. And the other thing is that wasn't the only record he broke. I mean, he also broke the rookie points record. His 50th goal was a big deal. And I was at all those games. Again, just the nicest guy.
Does that record still stand to this day, or has it been broken since?
Still stands.
Wow, that's incredible.
Both rookie points and rookie goals.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I mean, no one's really ever come close. 76 goals. I mean, nobody scores 76 goals in a season anymore. Nobody.
That's
not
true.
even Ovechkin or Kucherov or Matthews.
Is he in the Hall of Fame? I'd assume he is,
yeah.
right? Okay, just making sure, goes to, not a hockey guy, but what made you want to, that actually, going back to how you started your collecting for your hockey collection, you started out wanting to collect every 1,000-point man. What specifically made you pick that set, because eventually you graduated into like, all right, I just want all the Hall of Fame players, right? But what made you start out with 1,000-point man specifically?
Yeah, good question, Ben. I don't remember exactly, but if I had to speculate, which I do because I don't remember exactly, it must have been like a book came out or I saw a list somewhere. And at the time, I think there were like 58 players on the list. Now I think there's like 90 something around there. And it just seemed doable, and it seemed like a great long-term hobby goal and project. And it wasn't, it was still like collecting a set, but it was a set that wasn't tied to a specific brand or year. It was a custom set. It's very similar to the set registry that PSA does now, right, where, you can collect any theme you want, every Cy Young winner, right? Every Hall of Famer, every 300 win pitcher, that kind of thing, right? So to me, it just made sense. And it, of course, offensive players, you're all going to be Hall of Famers. There are a few key players that are omitted from that list, like Bobby Orr and Maurice Richard, never hit 1,000 points. So, eventually you have to kind of expand. The other one was 300 win goalies is another good one because of course there's no goaltenders to score 1,000 points.
it's that's one of the best things I find about the hobby, the specificity. You know what? You know what? How specific collecting goals can be, right? Where it's just like 1,000-point man, 300. What was it? 300.
Win goalies or win pitchers.
Yeah, 300 wins. Yeah, stuff like that. How it goes down to that old adage: there's no right or wrong way to collect. Everyone collects differently, and that's why, I hate to use this cliche, but it's like they're like snowflakes. No two collections are alike, and that's what makes it so unique. Like, you can have one collection. Even people who collect strictly, goats, like say just Jordan and Kobe, or like just Gretzky or anything like that. You're never gonna find two Jordan collectors or two Jordan collections or Gretzky collections that are like the exact same. People will be collecting. Some of them will just be strictly rookie Jordan. Some will be just inserts. It's like there's so many wide varieties and so many different layers of how you can collect, and it's great because it always provides you with those constant goals that you can set for yourself, right?
Yeah, you can customize, you can pick and choose, yeah, there's so many different ways. And that's again, you said it, that's what makes the hobby interesting, is that no two collectors have the exact same approach.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps it interesting. And that's why,
exactly.
We can be so self-interested in what we're doing, but it's always, it's in our best interest to ask other people how they're collecting, what their approach is, because it might give you an idea that will enhance the hobby for you. Like, be open-minded. Now, some people are just very strict with what they collect. Player collectors are the best example, right? I only collect Vince Carter, nobody else ever. That's fine. Hey, I'm not being judgmental of you. That's great. But if you're not like just married to one player, maybe you can find, and the other thing is that you're gonna maybe get bored eventually. So it's kind of good to keep your ear to the ground and find another approach that might appeal to you. And then you can go down that road as well and customize it for yourself still. There's so many options.
Yeah, and that's what keeps the hobby fresh and exciting for you, right? You always have that new thing or that new goal that you want to achieve. It goes back to what we were speaking about earlier, how
there's many PCs within the PC, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was gonna say, you can always add a new PC to your PC, which I do all the time. Like, if I didn't, I would start to lose some of my gas in this whole thing. I think, like, I'd still be looking for what I'm looking for, but the opportunity to find a new theme or a new direction, not to replace anything, maybe to replace something that you've completed, but not that you're like, okay, I no longer collect Hall of Famers. Now I just collect, Michael Jordan inserts. It's like, you don't have to do that. You can collect it all, but adding on new projects, new sub PCs, it's worked for me for decades now.
Absolutely. I love all the collecting talk that we've been discussing so far tonight. But of course, we're in a hobby era now where the sports card investor is very prominent in the hobby, right? So, with that said, you being the resident hockey expert here, okay. So the extent of my hockey card knowledge is Young Guns, the Cup, SP Authentic Future Watch. That's all I can like name, aside from like, if you want to go back to like OPC and everything like that. But okay, you have someone who wants to get into hockey. Or two people who want to get into hockey, someone who wants to collect, someone who wants to invest. Maybe they're one in the same, right? Give them a crash course. Give them a hockey card crash course.
Okay, well, I mean, oh boy. It really depends on which direction you want to go. But if you're looking for active players, the players, like, I don't give investment advice, but I'll give collecting advice. And if you want players who are going to endure, right now I'd be looking at guys like Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, Those are to me, are the top 4 active players. And of course, Crosby and Ovechkin are coming towards the end of their career, whereas McDavid and Matthews are really just getting started. I mean, McDavid's been in the league for 6 or 7 years. He's got a good 10 left. So you've still got a lot of runway with him. Matthews is great, obviously not in the playoffs, but he's, I think they'll get there. If you're looking to go back in time, then, you want to add in guys like Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Patrick Waugh. Those are the guys really from the 80s. And I can go back and give you guys previous to that. As far as rookie cards goes, I mean, I'm always a believer that rookie cards are important. And in hockey, for modern sets, you've got several. Upper Deck, the sole licensee, they put out, 20 sets a year, something like that. To me, you've got 3 main ones, and you just listed them. The flagship Upper Deck brand, Series 1 and Series 2, you've got the Young Guns. That's like the, I'd call it the everyman's rookie card, even though they've become very expensive in the last year for the key guys in high grade. And then you've got the SP Authentic Future Watch Auto. I have one here because I still haven't put these away since last weekend, but this is the Alexander Ovechkin SP Authentic Future Watch. And as you can hopefully see, it's a beautiful card. It's an on-card autograph. It's numbered out of 999. And to me, this is my choice. I love Future Watch Autos. Nice. And then you've got the Cup, which is the NTRPA or the Exquisite RPA. And, the Crosby, the Ovechkin, the McDavid, these cards can get into 6 figures. And they as they should when you compare it to what like LeBron's and Luka's and Giannis's go for, where we're talking several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So those are kind of your 3 main ones at the highest price point, the mid, and the lowest. Now there are lower price point rookie cards, but they're just a little bit more niche. Most of them are. So it depends what your strategy is, and some of them are very worthy of collections as well. So I mean, that's my real quick crash course. I hope that's what you were looking for.
No, that was perfect. I don't collect hockey myself, but what I love about it is I'm someone who's very much a minimalist. I like keeping things simple. And the problem with all the Panini sets and all the modern basketball and football and everything, there's so much out there where it's like you can't narrow it down. It's like, yeah, you can narrow it down to Prism as like the go-to modern set. But for the most part, as we've all seen in the hobby, the values of base Prism have gone down dramatically because people are realizing, oh, there's so much more out there because of how minimal and simple hockey is. Those base rookies of the Young Guns, they still, their value still holds. Their value still holds because I've seen like the Luka Prism, design Prisms, they've all been like tanking, while the McDavid and the Matthews Young Guns have been staying steady, which is like, it goes to show when you keep everything a lot more simpler, they become more valuable in a sense, right? So
yeah, a couple things. So with the Young Guns have been around since 1990, 91.
The lineage as well, yeah.
So the equity, I think, is a lot stronger than the Prism at this point in time. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, there's not as many parallels in Young Guns. There are parallels, but not quite. Like you've got the exclusives out of 100, the high gloss out of 10s.
Yeah. And
now you're seeing some acetates and that kind of thing. So, but there's like 5, maybe. Yeah. Maybe under 10 for sure. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that hockey does have a product that I love called O-Pee-Chee Platinum that is very deep in parallels. Nothing like what you see in basketball with Prism or football. Yeah. But there are still several different levels of parallels, and they're beautiful. It's basically to hockey what Prism is to basketball, and it's a great sort of crossover product for basketball people who are looking to get into hockey, and seismic golds and emerald surges, a couple of my favorite parallels from there. The other thing I want to mention is that, back to sort of the crash course in hockey cards, one thing I'll say is that a lot of Americans, they say, hockey's not even on the radar really. Soccer is way more on the radar than hockey is, F1, UFC. In Canada, it's all over the radar.
Yeah.
And it isn't a lot. There are a lot of American hockey collectors too. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
So one of the things to understand, if you're a basketball or a football, baseball collector looking to start dabbling in hockey, the hockey collector base is very, very committed and loyal. They're
Yes.
not going anywhere. Maybe more so than the basketball collector base. And the reason is because the basketball collector base, based on my perception, a lot of people are new in the hobby in the last like 1, 3, 5 years.
Yep.
And a lot of them are so involved and their mind is so tied to the financial value of their cards.
Mhm.
Hockey collectors, there's a lot of that too, but they're just so passionate about what they collect that the values could come down. They're still going to want those cards. I think there's almost more stability in hockey than there is in basketball. Baseball is like kind of seems to be forgotten in a lot of circles right now.
Yeah.
But the foundation of baseball is it's permanent. You know what I mean? It's in the foundation of America, just like hockey's in the foundation of Canada. Whereas basketball just isn't quite there. It just doesn't have the history or the historical fanaticism that baseball does. And hockey's Canada's commitment and passion and fanaticism for hockey is only rivaled by America's for baseball.
And I think that's what makes hockey, in terms of collecting, like that's the biggest X factor that they have. That, yeah, out of the 4 major sports, yes, it's not the most popular, but you could say that the collectors and the fan base, because of us Canadians up here, is the most passionate by far. It reminds me of a story. A friend told me how he has a collector friend who owns like 100 or something, a crazy amount of Connor McDavid Young Guns PSA 10s, and like he got them all like super early on, and he was like stockpiling them, right? And as they started going up in value, as people who want to get more equity like in the hobby, they'll sell off a few and then use that money to buy something else. This guy has diamond hands and he hasn't sold any of them. And it's a testament to how hardcore the hockey fan base and the hockey collector base is here in Canada.
Yeah. Like I said, it's I think because, we kind of touched on it earlier that the hobby itself is going to, it's not going anywhere because it all comes down to collectors. Sure, investors and flippers will come and go, but collectors aren't going anywhere ever.
No,
it's just as long as I've said it. I've put a couple of posts out there. As long as there are, how do I put it? As long as there are humans, there will be sports.
Yeah.
And as long as there are sports, there will be cards.
Yes, sir.
And as long as there are, as long as there are I forget how I put it, but there will also always be collectors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the hobby's not going anywhere. The collector base is the most important foundation within the hobby. And that's where the buck stops, is with the collectors. There needs to be an end user, a final owner of all these cards. So somebody who's hoarding 1,000 Luka Prism base cards, that's not a good sign in my mind. That's not good for the hobby, especially when people know they have them and think they could start to leak them out.
Yeah.
So, but again, collectors are the foundation, and hockey and baseball, I would argue, have the most passionate and stable collector bases out of the 4 major sports.
That anecdote you had right there, I think that's the soundbite of the episode. Oh, it was just, I was like, that's a Jeremy Lee Sports Card Live, like wisdom bomb or whatever you want to call it. I was like, oh, we got it. Oh, this episode is, You should let me redo it then, because I actually, here, I found it. Here it is. This is the post. Here's the post I put on Insta. I said, all right, can I read it? Go. Yeah.
Hey, let's do it. Let's pretend that this is the first time I'm saying it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I once made the comment that, as long as there are sports, there will be cards. As long as there are people, there will be collectors. The hobby is resilient. It evolves. It endures. If you have the stones to stay the course, you will realize the benefits. savor the experiences, enjoy the journey. So it really comes down to those first two. As long as there are sports, there will be cards, and as long as there are people, there will be collectors.
Oh, Jeremy Lee, ladies and gentlemen. That's just, and this is why Sports Cards Live is the best hobby show that you've all heard of. Because if y'all haven't heard of it, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? So, okay, you started Sports Cards Live, what, April 2020, right? Almost well over a year now, right? Yeah. Encouraged by all your fellow collectors and hobbyists. You know, what started out as a platform for you to sell your cards turned into the infamous hobby show it is today. So you've had like so many guests, over 100 episodes now, just had your 100th episode. What are some of the funniest stories that you've heard from people who have come onto the show?
Oh, that's, man, here's the thing. I can't really even answer that because the reason is because I don't remember all the shows like off the top of my head. Okay. You have to also remember that when I'm doing the show, I'm producing it on the fly. I'm watching the chat. I'm looking at my notes. So I'm talking to the guest, but I have to admit, I probably miss 20 to 30% of what they say because my mind, I try to focus in on what they're saying all the time, but some of the things I don't hear. So, and I'm always working on that. I'm trying to get that percentage to be lower and lower and lower. So, it's like, it's a blur, dude. It's like a blur at this point where I've had so many guests now. Like I had episode 100, but I've also had 40 episodes of After Hours. So I'm over 140 episodes. The average is 2 hours long. It's tough to remember some of the funnier moments. And just, if I'm being honest, nothing pops to mind right now. I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think about it. So I apologize.
It's all good. I put you on the spot there. I was like, okay, I had to shake him up a little bit with a question. I had to have that one. But
I wish I could just come out and answer that.
But it's all good. We'll talk about it on a future episode or something. But yeah, I commend you for what you do, because the fact that you live stream for 4 or 5 hours consecutively, pretty much, because you have that small break in between after hours, but for the most part you're nonstop for 4 or 5 hours straight, and you have to put on all these different hats of like, yes, you have to make sure you get through all your notes with your guests, but at the same time you're also moderating the chat, making sure everything's running swiftly. So yeah, people don't realize how tough that is. So I commend you for that completely.
I appreciate it. One of the trickiest parts, but the part that I take the most pride in, is when I'm talking to the guest and then a comment comes up that's relevant to that exact point of conversation and bringing that comment in, and it really helps round out the discussion. So, and I have to thank the chat members for that, the audience, because some of them are just so wonderful at asking really poignant questions, respectful. I've got a very respectful chat, just a great audience, loyal audience. That my average watch time is, I think, like it's very high for YouTube, and that's probably we all kind of keep an eye on our analytics and the metrics of our YouTube channels, but the one that I take the most pride in, it's not my number of subscribers, the number of views per video. It's my average watch time that I'm very proud of.
And honestly, in terms of like, that's a whole nother topic of discussion, but like in terms of the YouTube algorithm, they favor the watch time, and it goes to, and it's something that you should really genuinely be proud of, because it goes to show that it's like, oh wow, people are giving up this much time out of their day, out of their evening or whatever, to listen to these shows and listen to these conversations that I put on. So it shows how engaging it is and how people are genuinely interested in them.
Yeah,
that's and that's why you're the GOAT, brother. That's why you're the GOAT.
Right. It's crazy, man. Like I didn't plan it. I didn't plan to build this show, and but I'm so glad I did. I love doing it, and the guests have been phenomenal. Like I really feel like my guest list is just it's amazing, and yeah, I mean it's been a blessing, man. I love it. It's enhanced my hobby experience tenfold. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay. I don't want to keep you up all night. But I just want to wrap this up with a big thing. I love wrapping these Friends with Ben episodes up talking about family, because that's very like big to me. I know you're a family man, you know, you have a daughter and a son. So I have to ask one big, really, really important question here. So at what point do you pass down your collection to them? Or is it one of those things where it's like they get buried with you like an Egyptian pharaoh?
They don't get buried with me.
Okay,
that makes no sense. That makes no sense.
I know.
I know. I look forward to taking my kids to card shows with me, you know, traveling with them. I hope they're interested in the hobby. And I think they will be, because it's not just something you do solo, you know, isolated in your basement anymore. It's a social event now. It's not frowned upon by anybody. So I hope that they're interested in it. And at the end of the day, like, Mike, if they're not interested in owning these cards when I'm in my twilight years, my kind of vision is to go traveling card show to card show in my 80s or whatever and selling these off. And just, that's my retirement, is doing the card show circuit, maybe a motorhome, travel North America with, you know, and just sell these things off. What a great way to wind down, spend your life building the collection, and then spend your last few years. You know, if I'm fortunate enough to live that long and to, you know, be healthy, which I'm working on, you know, then that's what I will do. If my kids want these things and I feel they'd be good custodians of this collection, then they can have them.
I love that. That's like the sports card version of like the Kobe farewell tour, where it's like, you know, you do the rounds and it's like, all right, let's find the right home to put all these gems in, all these precious metal gems in, you know, pun fully intended.
Well, and man, you said find the right home to put these in. That's what it comes down to for me. I'm not just going to want to sell these cards to flippers or investors. Mm-hmm. I'm going to want them to find good homes. Now, I'm also going to want to max out my money, because at that point I'm going to be dead soon. And it's going to come down to finances for my family, my legacy, my kids and their future. So
yes,
but I'm going to, you know, if I don't like you, I'm not selling you a card.
Absolutely. Jeremy, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on what I believe is now the second episode of this Friends with Ben, I guess, reboot or soft relaunch, whatever you want to call it. Thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed learning a lot more about your story, going more in depth into it, as well as schooling me a bit on some hockey. Because, you know, as a basketball guy, in case it wasn't already obvious, you know, I like, it goes back to what I said about, you know, having a respect for the hobby, and that's how you thrive in it, right? It's taking all that knowledge from all the people who have been in it, all the hobby vets who can, there's so much that you can learn from each of these people, and you can apply it to your own, not just even limit it to your hobby experience, but even like your own life experience. So for that, I thank you, sir.
Hey man, thank you. The pleasure is really mine. It's an honor. I'm a big fan of yours. I love what you're doing. You're really good at this.
Thank you.
So keep it up, and I look forward to our future friendship.
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you.